Arna Bontemps, born on October 13, 1902, in Alexandria, Louisiana, grew up at the crossroads of African American, Creole, and French traditions. His family, which included free people of color among their ancestors, moved to Los Angeles when he was 3, as part of the Great Migration of African Americans fleeing the rigid racial barriers of the South. In Los Angeles, Bontemps' father, a contractor, introduced him to jazz clubs and construction sites, while his mother, a schoolteacher, nurtured his intellectual development. His early years in California, particularly in the vibrant Watts district, would shape his later work, imbued with a deep sense of cultural heritage and the importance of education. After graduating from Pacific Union College in 1923, Bontemps headed east to New York City, where he would become an integral figure in the Harlem Renaissance, the cultural awakening of African Americans in the early 20th century. His first major literary appearance came in 1924 when he published his poem Hope in the Crisis, the official magazine of the NAACP. At just 22, Bontemps was already exploring the complexity of African American identity, describing hope as a drifting empty bark, a metaphor that would resonate with many of his future works. In New York, Bontemps quickly forged connections with other luminaries of the Harlem Renaissance, including Langston Hughes, Cone T. Cullen, Zora Neale Hurston, and W.E.B. Du Bois. His friendship with Hughes, in particular, would prove pivotal, as Hughes became both a mentor and collaborator. In 1926, Bontemps married Alberta Johnson, and they had 6 children. As the Harlem Renaissance flourished, so did Bontemps' literary career. He published poetry, won literary prizes, and explored various genres, including fiction and children's literature. In 1931, Bontemps published God Send Sunday, his first novel, which told the story of a young African-American jockey whose fortunes rise and fall. Though the novel received critical praise for its vivid characters and poetic language, the celebrated African-American intellectual W.E.B. Du Bois criticized it for depicting a sordid world of black life. Nevertheless, Bontemps' style continued to evolve, and in 1932, he collaborated with Langston Hughes to write Popo and Fifina, an introduction to Haitian life for children, a genre in which Bontemps would continue to make significant contributions. Bontemps' literary voice became sharper as the 1930s unfolded. His novel Black Thunder, published in 1936, is often considered his finest work. It explores the 1800 slave rebellion led by Gabriel Prosser in Virginia, bringing to light the tragic yet heroic struggle of enslaved people seeking freedom. Although it earned acclaim for its historical depth and vivid portrayal of black resistance, Bontemps found it difficult to support his family from writing alone, especially during the Great Depression. He moved to Chicago in search of work and briefly taught at the Shiloh Academy before taking a job with the Illinois Writers Project under the Works Progress Administration, WPA. There, he mentored young writers like Richard Wright and Margaret Walker, helping to preserve the cultural history of African Americans. By the late 1930s, Bontemps' career was marked by his increasing focus on children's literature. In addition to Popo and Fifina, he published You Can't Pet a Possum, 1934, which explores rural Alabama life through the eyes of a young boy and his dog. Despite financial hardships, Bontemps persevered as a writer, even as he faced racial discrimination in the professional world. In 1934, following an increasingly hostile environment in Alabama, Bontemps resigned from his teaching post and returned to California. By the end of the decade, he had published Drums at Dusk, 1939, a novel inspired by the Haitian slave revolt led by Toussaint Louverture. Though critics were divided on the book's dramatic flair, its recognition marked Bontemps as a significant voice in African American literature. The 1940s brought both successes and challenges. Along with Jack Conroy, Bontemps wrote The Far Sooner Hound, 1942, a children's book about a hound dog racing against trains. Yet, the financial rewards of his writing remained elusive. In 1943, Bontemps returned to school, earning a master's degree in library science from the University of Chicago. He was soon appointed head librarian at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, a position that allowed him to shape the future of African American literature as a field of study. Bontemps collected and preserved important works, including the Langston Hughes Renaissance Collection, solidifying his role as both a writer and archivist. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Bontemps continued his dual path as a writer and librarian. His later works included a series of children's books, such as Slappy Hooper, 1946, and Mr. Kelso's Lion, 1970, as well as influential historical and biographical works on African American figures, including George Washington Carver, 1950, and famous Negro athletes, 1964. His anthology Story of the Negro, 1948, was particularly well received and earned a Newbery Honor. In collaboration with Hughes, he edited The Poetry of the Negro, 1949, a seminal collection that showcased the breadth and depth of African American poetry. In the 1960s, Bontemps returned to writing with renewed vigor, producing They Seek a City, 1945, and Any Place But Here, 1966, which chronicled the migration of African Americans. He also continued his work as an editor, compiling Great Slave Narratives, 1969, and The Harlem Renaissance Remembered, 1972, both of which contributed to the preservation of African American cultural history. Bontemps retired from Fisk University in 1966 but continued to work at the University of Illinois and later at Yale University, where he curated the James Weldon Johnson collection. In 1973, while still working on his short fiction, Bontemps passed away at the age of 71. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy as a poet, novelist, historian, and librarian lived on. Today, Bontemps is remembered not only as a pivotal figure in the Harlem Renaissance but also as a tireless advocate for the preservation and study of African American culture. The Arna Bontemps African American Museum in his hometown of Alexandria, Louisiana, stands as a testament to his contributions. His works continue to inspire, and his role in shaping modern African American literature remains a cornerstone of American cultural history. Our Anthropology extends its deepest gratitude to Arna Bontemps for his invaluable contributions and unwavering dedication to the advancement of African American literature and culture. We also want to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. We're excited to announce that we're now on Spotify podcast. Be sure to join us again on Friday for another captivating biopic.